Hello everybody, what's up? I'm about to attempt something that I've been wanting to try for a very long time now. I just didn't really have the chance to up until now. Something that I'm very much excited for. I am going to watch all 8 of the Harry Potter movies back to back to back to back to back to back to back. I lost count. But yeah, I'm going to watch them all, hopefully within the same 24 hours, while also keeping my sanity in the process. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Couldn't really quite find the time to do it. Do now. And yeah, this is sort of in preparation for a Harry Potter trivia match that I've got coming up in about a month or so. This is also in preparation for a show that I'm doing tomorrow, where we're counting down the top 5, our top 5 favorite Harry Potter moments. So yeah, this is all in preparation for that. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I wanted to do this for a very long time, and now I finally get a chance to do so. So I'm going to start with the first movie the first movie that started it all, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or the Sorcerer's Stone, whichever version you want to go with. I don't know. I just go to Philosopher's Stone because it sounds cooler. Anyways, so yeah, I'm going to give you guys quick updates. I'm in between watching these movies. Telling and expressing my thoughts on them, seeing them, and revisiting them after about a decade and a half after seeing them. Yeah, let's jump right into it, and let's just hope I make it all the way to the end. So see you guys after I've watched the first movie. Goodbye. What's up, everybody? Reporting back. I've just watched Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Apparently, that's the correct pronunciation of the name there. Yeah, I don't know. One source is saying the Philosopher's Stone, when the other one is saying the Sorcerer's Stone. I don't know. I don't care. I just say the Philosopher's Stone. It's great to be back. It is great to be back in the wizarding world, and it's so hard looking back and how different things were back then. Not just in the story, but filmmaking. I will say, to be honest, effects haven't quite held up as well as some of the more recent Harry Potter movies. Some questionable CGI here and there. Some questionable acting from the very young actors, but I mean, they're child actors. You can't really hold them to the same standards that you do adult actors. But be that as it may, the actors did a wonderful, fantastic job portraying their characters, and it's such a young age. And I know it's a cliche at this point, but it's hard just looking at these young actors looking the way that they did back then, and how drastically they look, not necessarily now, but in some of the later movies in the franchise. It's so incredible to see their transformation and their growth, which I will get a chance to in just a minute as I watch the second one. But I will say this, though, it was hard. The hardest thing with this movie was looking at Hedwig. Every scene that featured Hedwig. For those of you who don't know, I very recently had to put down my dog, Sandy, last year. So obviously anything involving pets is a very touchy subject for me. But, you know, knowing what happens to Hedwig at the end is really just a knife in the heart. Which leads me to my next point. Knowing how everything is going to end up for most of these characters also really influences my way of viewing this franchise. But yeah, I gotta go jump in and watch the second one, because I've got a long day ahead of me. So see you guys after I've watched the rest of the movies in this franchise, whose name is unquestionable: Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. See you guys in just a minute. And I'm back again, having watched Chamber of Secrets, and as you may have, or may not have noticed, the sun is coming down. There's still a little bit of sunlight left, but I turned on the rest of the lights because it was getting too dark in here. Just like the series is about to get very, very dark. So this was the last of the Christopher Columbus movies in the Harry Potter franchise. I do think those movies, while they did a great job setting up the rest of the series, they were much more on the whimsy and much more on the childish side as opposed to some of the later entries in this franchise. Something that I noticed in the first one and forgot to talk about, but I'll mention briefly here. I do think that the whole getting to the school, the whole stuff pre Hogwarts is a little bit rushed for time. Obviously, I mean those books were very long, and those movies are arguably even longer. This movie is longer than the previous one for obvious reasons, but yeah, I do think that there are a lot of rushed moments at the beginning, and then after that it kind of really takes its time. It's a bit of a slow burn for the Chris Columbus movies. Again, I might change my opinion or say the same thing about the rest of the movies in this franchise, because remember, haven't seen those movies in over a decade. So that's a quick update on me. The children are starting to grow into the roles that we already know they become. We're definitely seeing some significant changes with Harry and Hermione, particularly. Ginny's still a little bit on the younger side, but obviously she grows up to, Ginny. Obviously, I loved the introduction of Jason Isaacs, who will be a recurring villain in the series going forward. But yeah, it's been fun hanging out in Hogwarts with the Richard Harris Dumbledore. Unfortunately, he passed away shortly after this movie and replaced tremendously, if I may add, by Michael Gambon, who played the part to perfection. And I do prefer that iteration of this character, and it's great that I'm going to see it again in the third one. But yeah, this, I believe, Prisoner of Azkaban is what I always go back to as the movie where everything changed, by way of just everything from the visual aesthetic to the production design, to direction, obviously, even some of the way that the characters look, some of the characters' appearances have changed drastically between the first two movies and the third one, and the third one is how pretty much they all stayed throughout the rest of the series. So yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna leave you off here and jump right into the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban. See you then. And I'm back again for another update after just finishing Prisoner of Azkaban. Definitely the movie that I consider the biggest leap in the series forward. It's definitely the movie where everything started to change and go in a certain direction. It's a lot of people's favorite movie, as a matter of fact. Fans of the books and not fans of the books. I wouldn't go as far to say it's my favorite, but it's definitely up there. One of my biggest complaints, in retrospect about the movie is how much, and it's a complaint that I would say about all the Harry Potter movies, and it's how much, not only how much they didn't use from the books, but the specificity of things they chose to leave out for time. And obviously, so far, this is the shortest movie in the franchise so far. Again, first movie about around 2 hours 26 minutes. Second movie around 2 hours 40 minutes. This one's around 2 hours and 21 minutes. So yeah, so far shortest movie in the franchise, and the specificity of the things they chose to omit from the final finished product, like the backstory of the Marauders and how they all connect with Harry and more specifically Snape. But yeah, I mean I suppose they just had to cut what they had to cut, and I'm fine with it. This is, like I said, like I said earlier, this is the first movie not being directed by Christopher Columbus, and the change is definitely noticeable. First of all, they changed the entire way that Hogwarts looks, and they mostly kept it the same after this movie going forward. Obviously, the actors are really now starting to look different, especially Tom Felton, who I believe is the most different out of all of them between the first two movies and this one. But yeah, they're starting to grow into their characters and become what they're about to become. And obviously, I love the introduction of Gary Oldman's as Sirius Black, David Thewlis as Remus Lupin. Unfortunately, though, this is the beginning of the less we see of Hagrid throughout the rest of this series, in the books and in the movies, unfortunately. But I mean, I suppose it had to be done for the story. In any case, really great seeing this movie again after all this time, and obviously, once you've seen it once, you see it differently every time because of the whole time travel aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, we're getting dark. We're getting darker. The series is definitely getting darker from here on out. But I do appreciate all of the attempts at humor that I think land definitely better than in the previous movies, but they definitely land better in this movie. And yeah, one thing that I will note is a significant improvement is it's not they're not really changing some of the stuff in the before Hogwarts. I don't know, it kind of feels a little better. Interestingly enough, the before Hogwarts in the Christopher Columbus movies feels a lot more rushed in those movies than in this movie, but when they actually get to Hogwarts, things are starting to get rushed as opposed to taking their time, well, like they did in the first two movies. That's something that I definitely noticed the first time around. I don't think I have anything else to say at the moment, but yeah, I mean that's all I can say for now. I'm just gonna jump into what is my favorite book in the series, The Goblet of Fire, and well, let's see how I feel like coming out of that movie. So see you then. And well, here we are again, 4 movies in, halfway through, and I'm kind of starting to get tired. It's already past midnight, but I'm definitely planning to finish this. Now, unlike the previous movie, we're back to some of the longer movies. This was about 2.5 hours, I guess. But yeah, this movie, at the time, I gave it a very harsh criticism because, as I mentioned previously, it's my favorite of the books in the series. And it's... At the time, I felt like it got the worst treatment as far as they removed so much out of it, entire storylines, characters that weren't even in this, and this does even worse job explaining how certain things happen. For Prisoner of Azkaban, I talked about how they just barely glossed over the whole Marauders part of it, which is a huge part of the Harry Potter mythos. In this, they did it even worse by completely skipping over how Barty Crouch Jr. escaped from Azkaban, which is a huge, question mark for people who haven't seen it. Now, I guess you can sort, for the Marauders, for the previous one, you can kind of sort out how Sirius was able to escape from Azkaban, because he can literally turn himself into a dog. With the Barty Crouch situation, it's much more complicated, much more detailed. And so it's just, it sucks that they changed it up that bad, but overall, in hindsight, like I said, it's my favorite book, and I think the visual medium of the movie universe kind of did it justice. Now, obviously, it's hard to imagine this as anything other than the movie series we've already gotten, but maybe, I don't know, we're in the habit of rebooting things these days. Maybe 20, 30 years from now, the entire Harry Potter universe can sort of be rebooted as a limited series where every book takes place over the course of an entire season. That is something that I'm very much interested to see how someone else would tackle that, and they will definitely be able to stuff all these intricate details in, and it will be interesting to compare them to the movies, to the books. But yeah, I mean, that's just an idea floating in the wind. In any case, yeah, great movie. Like I said, I'm starting to get tired. Now it's time to move on to what is my least favorite of the movies, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, and it's also the longest book. But I think it might actually be the shortest movie out of all 8 of them. Interestingly enough, it's the longest book. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna jump into Harry. I'm gonna first of all make myself something to eat because I'm starting to get really hungry, and I'm gonna eat while watching Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, the 5th movie in the franchise. And I will talk to you guys later, hopefully on a more full stomach and able to form sentences better. See you then. Yes, I'm still doing this. I just finished Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Again, as I mentioned this on my previous update, it's my least favorite of the Harry Potter movies. I love the book, but as far as the movie goes, again, and I said it this last time, it's the longest movie, but so far I think it's the shortest. I'm sorry, it's the longest book, but so far I think it's the shortest movie. Like, it clocks in at just about 2 hours and 18 minutes. So just under 220, which, as I mentioned, out of the 5 movies I've watched so far, it's the shortest one. So yeah, and how do you take so much from the the Wizarding World mythology and mythos, and just cut it out of the film? It's just beyond me. But yeah, it's still good. It's still it's still a piece of the Harry Potter franchise, and it's great to revisit and with fresh eyes, and something that it's getting more and more into me. Something that I'm noticing more and more with these Hogwarts-based films is how much Hogwarts really reminds me of my time in the military. As far as, you basically live there, and there's a certain uniform you have to wear, and certain rules you have to follow. But there's also the option you can just switch into your civilian clothes and wander around in certain times when you're not necessarily on schedule. So yeah, that's something that exists in all the Harry Potter movies, and it just really, it took me until now just to notice that. But that's beside the point. Something I didn't talk about last time was the introduction of Ralph Fiennes as He Who Shall Not Be Named. Lord Voldemort himself came back right at the very end of Goblet of Fire, but definitely made an impression, and he's back even in an even bigger way in Order of the Phoenix. And yeah, Order of the Phoenix is definitely where things really ramp up towards the end, and because obviously that's where they switched directors to David Yates, who directed the last 4 of them, which really maintained a certain level of consistency, the same way that the first two Christopher Columbus ones, that is, had a certain connectivity between them. Then they started switching up directors every movie. It sort of felt a little not disjointed, but sort of very different. And once David Yates took the reins, it sort of became one unified, cohesive vision. I also noticed I think this is the first instance where they changed the screenwriter as well. Maybe that had something to do with it. And I believe at some point J.K. Rowling herself really got involved with the script. Maybe that had something to do with it. But yeah, these are some of the more significant changes that I've noticed with these movies, and especially now with Order of the Phoenix. At this point, I really do wish they had 7 movies instead of 8, because I've got 3 more left, and I would have much rather have only 2. But yeah, I'm wasting too much of my own time, so I'm just gonna jump into the Half-Blood Prince. I believe it's the one that got the most amount of criticism from the Harry Potter community, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, only 3 movies left to go, and I can finally put this journey to rest. So I'll be back after watching the Half-Blood Prince with the next update. So see you then. Well, I've made it through to the end of another movie. That was the end of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I'm starting to talk like people from the Harry Potter universe, and that's starting to be scary to me. As you can see, I've made it through the night. The sun is starting to rise. A couple of movies ago, we talked about the sun setting. Now it's beginning to rise. So yeah, it's still within the confines of 24 hours, so I'm still feeling very confident I'm going to make it all the way to the end. And, only 2 movies left to go, so, guess I better get started. In any case, just quickly, briefly talking about Half-Blood Prince. Don't really remember much of it from its original release. This is actually the first time where I actively read the book all the way to the end before seeing the movie in its entirety. Yeah, this was my first introduction to something like that, and I dare say, despite a lot of stuff being removed from the book in the final final version of the movie, I was not disappointed. I think they touched on all the things that they should have touched. I probably appreciated the book's subtlety in certain areas more than others. As opposed to the movie, I definitely appreciated the more emphasis on more stretching things out. And again, these books are very long, and the movies are in and of themselves are very long. This movie was about around 2.5 hours ish, and yet there's still so much they could have done with it. But I mean, I'm happy with the finished product, so I really can't complain too much about the movie we got. Again, see, the death of the death of Dumbledore is devastating to go all over again. But it was what lessened the impact for me, at least, because at the time that I watched the movie, I don't think I've read the final book yet, so I didn't know everything that I was supposed to know at the end. And knowing that everything was planned and carefully planned out, which was revealed in the final book, knowing that, the impact of Dumbledore's death hits differently. But it's a very tragic thing. It's a beloved character, played by a beloved actor, and it's sad to see a character like that fall to their death, essentially. So, yeah. Now we're going into the final stretch, the last 2 movies, so I guess I'd better get on that. And these are definitely where the money is made, literally and figuratively, where the story itself comes to an end, and you can see shades of that in the Half-Blood Prince. You can definitely start to see the beginning of the end, the beginning of the conclusion of the story. Now we're at the conclusion of it with the last 2 movies, which is the final book split into 2 movies. I'm gonna stop rambling on and just go and watch it. So I'll see you guys once I come out of it. Hopefully I'll still have my sanity by then. So see you then. Well, I've made it, sort of, to another end of another movie in this 8 movie franchise. And well, as you can see, the sun is now fully up, and I am very tired. It is 8 in the morning. I started this at around 1 yesterday, around 1 in the afternoon. My fault, I'm afraid. I think maybe I should have just started around this time, around 8 in the morning, maybe 10 at the latest, so that I could have just timed it better and just watched the last 4 or 5 movies all through the night, and maybe ended by sunrise. But, you know, I've never been one to wake up early in the morning. I've been one to wake up late in the afternoon and just go through the night. I'm just saying stuff that's really not relevant to the thing. I just watched Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I'm still wiping away the tears from the death of Dobby at the very end there. I do have to say, at first it felt like a stupid idea to divide the last book into 2 movies. I completely support it now, because while the last book isn't the longest, and as we've discussed multiple times here, it's not the longest, but it's definitely the densest, and it has the most stuff happening in it, the most amount of moving parts, the most story in it. Even though some of the other books are longer, most of the stuff in there is just world building that, while it would have been great to see it in the movies, it wasn't 100% essential to the plot, and that is the main reason why they were cut. I mean, we can talk endlessly about the hospital scene in The Order of the Phoenix, and the whole rescuing of the dragon in the Philosopher's Stone. Great moments in the books, and the whole Spew storyline from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Again, great stuff to have in the books. would probably have dragged on in the movies, and that's why they were cut. And that's why in retrospect, I'm giving the filmmakers a lot of props for making sure that they stayed on target for the most part. And earlier in this very challenge that I've set to myself, I criticized not having the explanation of the Marauders in Prisoner of Azkaban. Like I said, its great backstory would have dragged on, because for the most part it was just Sirius and Remus sitting down with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, just talking to them and explaining to them everything. So yeah, this movie doesn't do that. This movie has all the essentials. They still cut stuff out because eventually you're going to have to do that, but they have. I mean, this movie just there's no build up. It opens with it's 5 hours of climax. The last couple of movies, the last two movies are just non-stop climax. It is a series finale through and through, and that is why I appreciate those two movies as much as I do. Now, obviously, a lot of tragic deaths in the first one, and the deaths are only going to start to double themselves in the second one. So I'm just going to jump in and watch final movie in the series, and talk to you then once I'm able to still have a grasp on reality. So see you after the last movie. And so we have come to this, my final update on the matter. I have just finished watching Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, and if I'm being completely honest, I was so exhausted by the end after, basically doing nothing but watch those movies for the last, 20 hours or so. I was so exhausted by the end of it that I fell asleep and had to rewind, obviously, and watch the parts that I missed. Obviously, I know what happens because I watched the movies a bunch of times and I read the books, but still, I committed to doing this, so I went back and watched everything that I missed. And well, this whole experience has been great. However, it definitely wrecked me. I'm exhausted. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to attempt something like this again. Especially not anytime soon, that's for sure. But I'm sure that after a good sleep, a proper sleep, that is, my brain is just going to process this whole the last 24 hours much better, and I'll just be able to appreciate the fact of everything that I just did. In any case, the movie itself, I said the same thing about the previous one, but I'll say it again here. It is a series finale. All the other movies were just the rest of the season, and the last two episodes were the season finale and series finale, sorry. And it did not disappoint. Neither one of the two. They were both, like I said, payoffs. They were 4.5 hours of just payoff, and it was glorious. The setup, I would argue, was the rest of the movies in the franchise. The last two are the payoff, and the payoff is good. Payoff is great. They were able to wrap up the movie franchise in the best way possible that they could. Obviously, the books did it better because they touched on all the things. But like I said earlier, there were a lot of the stuff that was in the books was mostly just dialogue that was great in the books, in the written medium of books and novels, but they wouldn't have translated as well to the visual medium that is the movies. A great example of that would be the story of A Tale of Three Brothers, which I realized was in the previous movie, but I'll mention it here. It would have just been boring to have Hermione read a story from a book for a few minutes on screen. So instead what they did was they had her narrate it while we saw some animation along the way. That's a great example of how to adapt something like this, a scene like that from a book into the visual medium of film, and great. Unfortunately, though, a lot of, I would say, questions were left unanswered. Maybe not questions, just details that certain people are not going to have to look up in order to find out. I'm sure people who haven't read the books wouldn't even know that the resurrection stone that was hidden inside the snitch was the same stone that was in the ring that used to belong to Voldemort's mother. Like, that's one thing that people probably wouldn't realize, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect the narrative one bit. It's just a cool, fun fact for the hardcore fans to know and brag about it to their friends who haven't read the books. But yeah, the movie, the shortest movie in the series so far, and I think in the franchise, because it's even shorter than the two Fantastic Beasts movies. I can't remember what their runtime was exactly, but I think this is definitely the shortest movie in the franchise. But it was just as long as it should have been, and I still stand by the decision to split the final book into two movies, because there's just so much stuff in there that one movie just wouldn't have been enough. It would have to have been either 3.5-hour movie or a very, very condensed version that had to cut a lot of the stuff out, and we saw how that worked pretty badly with The Order of the Phoenix, where they cut out a ton, and I just wouldn't want that for the series finale, as it were. So I'm glad they went in the direction that they did, and I'm proud of myself for being able to achieve this accomplishment. This is just something that I will forever be able to say that I was able to do. Watch all 8 movies in less than 24 hours. It destroyed me, but I'm happy I did it even still. And well, that's really all I have to say for now. So this is my final update on the matter. Maybe I'll do something like this in the future, definitely in the far future if so, but yeah, until then, everybody, this has been Harry Potter, and I gotta go to sleep now. So good night, everybody. Hello again, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed this video, because I really enjoyed making it. So, if you like what you've seen here, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content like this. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you guys next time.